Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gilman-Rischel. I lead a PR firm called 3PR focused on healthy food brands, and I am not so secretly obsessed with introductions.
And I'm Gina Anderson Cohen. I've spent more than 13 years building a health and wellness media company that tricks adults into making friends called The Sweat Life. I forgot what it did for a second. And I'm also working on a social gathering and event space in New Buffalo, Michigan called Petite Acres. I am obsessed with friends and gathering.
Which just had, by the way, a wonderful story in Crane Chicago business. I think Petite Acres is going to be such a destination.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm excited for it.
Yes. So we always kick off with a big question. And today's big question is inspired by our guest, who I really adore, professor and author Suzy Welch. So Gina, do you think you truly know yourself and your purpose?
I'm laughing because I hope so. And I think I have data also after using some of Suzy's tools to say yes. I think that I know my one sentence purpose. I'm here to make friends. I know my broader purpose. I'm here to help the world connect. And I know what matters to me after deeply auditing those things from like the pandemic and beyond. So I feel really grounded in my purpose. But I'd love to hear from you, Rachel, because you spent like a long weekend with Suzy Welch at her seminar at NYU, really digging into all of this too.
Yeah, so I feel like I almost have a little bit of an unfair advantage with this question because I went to school for it. But Suzy teaches this 3-day intensive called Becoming You at NYU's campus in the Stern School of Business. And then she has a semester-long course for university students as well. So I think I logged like 25 hours with Suzy in one long weekend. But she does this really interesting thing in the course where you're matching up your aptitudes, your values, economic viability, all in search of this greater purpose of what to do with your life. So it's both lofty and also very data driven. And I think I went in initially being like, I'm going to have this crazy epiphany that maybe my life should look so different. And I came out being like, I'm pretty much doing the right thing. I could just tweak around the margins. And so I think I am meant to be in communications, meant to be a connector. I do love to be a helper. I get frustrated perhaps when I feel like it's not appreciated, but that's my own issue to mine.
Mm-hmm.
And also the course affirmed that I'm a deeply spiritual person, and that plays a big role in my decision making. So I think I've kind of locked in on some of the purpose, but Suzy just does such an incredible job of putting all the scaffolding around it and helping people get to a clear answer.
Yeah, she is fantastic. I think you and I had a chance to compare notes on our values bridge, which is what Suzy's values assessment tool, which you can find online, is called. And you can access some of the details for yourself without paying, and you can access the full report if you pay. I paid for it. I felt like it was really worth it. And Suzy will share more about that in the interview. But what do you think, Rachel? Should we hear from Suzy Welch?
Yes, let me set up.
Tell me everything.
This is just a smidgen of her incredible CV. So Suzy Welch is an award-winning NYU Stern School of Business professor, acclaimed management researcher, and, just a New York Times bestselling author, most recently with the book Becoming You, a proven method for crafting your authentic life and career, which is a #1 bestseller on Amazon. Oh, and also a graduate of Harvard University and Harvard Business School. Professor Welch is a frequent guest of The Today Show, an op-ed contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and host of the podcast Becoming You, which is one of America's most listened to career podcasts. And it's a fabulous podcast. She serves on the boards of public and private companies, and she's the director of the NYU Stern Initiative on Purpose and Flourishing. And she has 4 kids. And she's a grandma. Suzy is absolutely one of the most fascinating people I think I've gotten to connect with in real life. And I have her on this like really, really high pedestal. So I think this conversation was a gift.
Here we are with Suzy.
Suzy Welch, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I am so happy to be on the podcast. Thank you for having me.
I don't know if anybody's happier than I am, but because this is a podcast about connection, I always want to provide an origin story about how we came together
Yep.
and do a thank you. So, my wonderful friend Danielle Robay had you on her show, Question Everything. The episode was so inspiring that I immediately texted Danielle at the beginning of January and said, should I buy Suzy's book, Becoming You? And because she's the best, she goes, let's do one better. I'm going to send you to Suzy's class at NYU. And so I sat for 3 days front row because I'm aggressive and just marveled in your wisdom and your absolute life force and became captivated by you. And then on the last day, I came up to you and said, Suzy, will you be on my podcast? And you said yes.
Yes, I said yes. I loved you sitting in the front row with your beautiful eyes looking at me and like taking it in, and you kind of nodded along the way. I was just looking right back at you. Thank you.
I'm a teacher's daughter, so I do love sitting in class. And well, this is why I wanted to start with how you became a professor. I wanted to learn about the journey to this act of your life. You've done so many different iterations of your career, and now you're this fabulous professor. So how did that happen?
I will tell you the story. All right. All right. Well, it is a long and winding story to me becoming a professor. And it's funny because when I was in business school, those many years ago, I was at Harvard Business School. It was 1986. And I was a dutiful little student and good at my classes because I studied so hard. And the dean came to me and he said, would you like to stay here and get your PhD? And tried to recruit me into the PhD program while I was getting my MBA. And I said, like, no way. I mean, the bubble over my head was like, I don't want to be poor. I'm in business school. But I said, no, thank you very much. And I did say something about paying back my loans. And he said to me, you're going to be an academic someday, Suzy. Why don't you just start right here? And I thought, what does he mean I'm going to be an academic? I've thought about it many times. So I went on and I was not an academic for 40 years. I mean, I was a consultant. I was a broadcast journalist. I was an author of books and so forth. And I was really kind of a content creator. We didn't have that word when I was going along, but I was a content creator. And then life had its many twists and turns. I was very enmeshed in the world of business. And then very sadly, 6 years ago, on March 1st, 2020, my husband died. And we were not surprised, but that because he had been sick for a long time, but that doesn't make it, well, maybe it makes it easier in some ways, but it doesn't make it less sad. And it was at the start of the pandemic. And so I had sort of these two double whammies. Everybody was going through the sort of big reset of the pandemic. And I was kind of thinking, what will I do now? I had not really let myself think about what I was going to do in my new iteration as a solo practitioner. I had been really just done everything with my husband in a really beautiful partnership. And in that period, I had the idea for the class that was to Becoming You. I had it because I was thinking a lot about what I should do with my life. And I had this process to help me decide. And I was talking to my children are all in their 30s, and I was talking to them about it. And my oldest son said, I think that's a class, Mom, and I think you should call it Becoming You. And I thought, maybe it is a class. I think I will take this idea to the dean at NYU, who I knew from my previous work. Okay, I just knew him in my life. I'm in the business world, academic world, and I went to go see him, and I described the class, and he said, well, we don't have that class, but I would like to take a class like that. Have you ever taught before? And I said, no. And he said, well, let's try it as a little tiny experiment. And I was like, so grateful. I was like, yeah, let's try it as a little tiny experiment. I was like, not ready to step out. But a funny thing happens when you have a class called Becoming You, crafting the authentic life you want and need, and you offer it to MBA students right as the pandemic's ending. And that is that they sort of sign up for it in droves. This was not about me. Most of them had no idea who I was, but they signed up. And so the dean called me and he said, how do you feel about teaching 2 sections of that class? And I was like, sure. I had no idea what was going on behind the curtain. They were not saying to me, oops, we have a little problem. Like 800 people want to take this class. And so I ended up teaching 2 sections of 40 that first semester. And it was transformative for me, and it was transformative for the wonderful students who helped me co-create the class. I mean, the first day I said to them, look, I'm trying to create something here. Will you help me? And they were like, okay, we're in. And we created this curriculum. And the dean then came to me and he said, I think you have something that the community will benefit from. Would you consider joining the faculty as a dean's appointment? And I was like, would I consider it? The answer is yes. I mean, I was like, I had loved teaching so much, and I had loved the experience in the classroom of helping people do the very serious, hard work of excavating their values and their aptitudes and their interests. And so off I was to the races. And after that, I mean, I now teach in mega sections, and I'm a full professor. So I also teach a class in management. And I'm on committees and attend academic conferences. So I bought the whole farm. So I'm loving it. And it's my place. I found my place. So I'm really excited about it.
And you said, Suzy, as you were telling that story, something that I was like, ooh, more. You said it was transformative for you and them. Can you tell us how it was transformative for you?
Yes. Well, look, I was the first beta tester of this methodology, right? I mean, here was this methodology that said, hey, we're going to help you find your purpose. That's what Becoming You says it's going to do. It's going to help you find your purpose. And how's it going to do that? Well, the premise of the class is that your purpose lies at the intersection of three superhighways, or sort of three data sets. Your values, which I wasn't sure what mine were, because I'm like most people. I don't even know in those days, I didn't even know what a value was. I mean, like, what are values? I sort of had a handle on my values, but I didn't really know. I wanted to be more sure about it. And then your aptitudes, which is what you're good at, because I firmly have always believed that, like, if you're not good at it, let it be a hobby. Okay. It doesn't make any difference if you want to sing and you want to be a rock star. If you can't sing or play the guitar, please, like, do it in the garage. All right. And then the third thing is your economically viable interest, which is what the world is offering you, that they will also pay you for. I mean, like, you can be a calligrapher if you don't need money, but most people need money. So I went through every single exercise with the students that first year. I excavated my values, I identified my aptitudes, and I thought about the economically viable alternatives available to me. And I was fortunate because the wind was at my back. I was an established person. I was not at that point, believe me, I've had times in my life where money was scarce, but this was not one of them. And so I was able to go through the whole process. And I thought, I mean, what it was for me was super confirming. What it was me saying, oh yeah, no wonder this feels so good. I'm absolutely 100% living my purpose. And I am the poster child for this process, its efficacy. And at the same time, there were 80 young people going through it with me, discovering for many of them what their values were for the first time, what their aptitudes actually were, not what people were telling them they were good at, but what they were actually good at. And then what were the economically viable interests? I'm super interested in megatrends. So I taught about megatrends. I'm interested in I know the world is very large, and my students were all kind of congregating around three conveyor belts, technology, consulting, and banking. And I was like, wait, what about these 135 other industries that happen to exist? And so we went through the whole process together. And as I was sort of saying, wow, I think I might be onto something, they were saying, wow, I think she might be onto something.
First of all, I can't say enough about how transformative your Becoming You course was. And I really do recommend for anybody who can take the 3 days and do it. It was illuminating. One of my favorite parts is we did go through our values exercise through the values bridge, but then you had us stress test our values with a simulation where we had to really hone in on like the top 5. I loved that because it was very clarifying.
Yes.
You talk about how your number one value is cosmos, which is faith. Yeah. And I wanted to know if you could elaborate, where do you think that came from and how it shows up in your connections in life?
Sure. I wanted to say a few things. Number one is I do have this 3-day workshop where people come from around the world, and they take you can take it as a student at NYU, but people outside of NYU wanted to take Becoming You as a process. And I went to the dean and I said, I would like to democratize Becoming You and allow people on the outside world to take it. And he said, basically, if you promise not to go teach someplace else, we will help you do that here on the campus. And so I have an incredible partner in NYU. I don't know another school that would do such a thing. I mean, they've been amazing. It makes me so incredibly grateful to be a professor there. So, but I also do like free webinars. We have one coming up where I just describe the process for free for an hour. And if that's enough for some people, and if you want to know more about that, just go to my website, SuzyWelch.com, and learn more. Okay. So I just wanted to put those 2 cents in there. Then you asked, so then values, before I talked about Cosmos being my first value, let me just say that values are not to be mixed up with virtues. That's, some people might be listening to this conversation and they would not be alone and thinking, wait, I know my values. They're honesty, fairness, decency, respect. And those are all wonderful things, but those are virtues virtues are social constructs that we all agree are good. they're not really choices about, if you want to choose between kindness and not kindness, I don't want to know you. Values are choices about how much we work, how much we play, who we marry, where we go on vacation. It's sort of like and I firmly believe, based on my PhD research, that there are 16 values, and they all exist along a continuum. For instance, there's a value of scope, which is how big and exciting and chaotic a life you want. And some people want a big, frantic, chaotic life. They'll take the downsides of it. And other people want lives that are low scope, which have got more predictability, more visibility, more psychological safety. That's a choice. Okay, so that makes it a value. And family centrism, some people think family is a virtue. Everyone should feel the same way about family, but that's just not realistic. Some people want to organize their lives around their families, and some people do not. And if you're not hurting anyone, for God's sake, just live your value, okay? Don't let anybody tell you what you should be feeling. I mean, family centrism, I love my children. I'd give them both my kidneys. I mean, I adore them and they're my best friends, but I do not organize, and I never have organized my life around my kids. It's not who I am. I value achievement and work centrism very highly. So there are these 16 values, which we talk a lot about, and they sort of become your language when you enter the becoming universe, as we call it. But it does end up that one of the values, and of course, my values inventory and my values test are built on the shoulders of the great values scholars. I did not invent this out of thin air. I've done tons of research on it. One of the values that I have is faith. And in that, it's about how much, and we call it cosmos because it's irregardless of any faith. You could be Christian, you could be Jewish, you could be Muslim. It doesn't make any difference what faith it is. But it is that how much does your faith organize your life? And for some people, it's a barbell value. We have 150,000 people have taken the values bridge. So we know how that plays out in the general American society. And for 38% of the population, it's one of their top 5 values. But for the rest of the population, it's one of their bottom 5 values. Very few people in the middle. That's very unlike other values. Usually there's a bell curve. So my top faith is I'm a very faithful person. I was brought up in a mixed household. My mom was Catholic and my dad was culturally Jewish. He was not a temple-going person. And I was basically, what happened was there was very little conversation around religion. And so I'm a very unlikely person to have this as my top value, except for that my grandmother, the Catholic grandmother, who didn't really have a robust, say, for instance, understanding of the Bible or any of the characters in the Bible, was kind of a cultural Catholic in that she went to Mass. And she used to bring me to Mass with her. And this was so long ago that it was in Latin. Okay, Catholic Mass was still in Latin when I was a little girl. All right, I mean, that changed in the 70s, that the Catholic Church said, well, maybe people should understand what's being said. But there was something going on in that church that was very powerful to me. And it was something that felt bigger than all of us. And I was very drawn to it. And later I was sent away to boarding school, and it was a Protestant boarding school where chapel was required. And I was immediately engaged with this person of Jesus and the story of the Bible. And I was really drawn. It started the long education, self-education, which started when I was around 14 years old, to the point where when I was in my early 20s, I thought this faith thing, it is for me. And I made it a very big central tenet of my life. And it still is. It is. And it's a very defining value for me. Now, of course, I live in a secular world, and most of my students are not faithful people on my own team. I might be the only faithful person. I'm not about evangelicalizing it to others, but I certainly speak about it openly because I think we should all speak about our values openly. I think because I think that it's better to be authentic than not. So that's how it came to be. I mean, it's a very long story, of which I could tell you all its twists and turns, but that's the cliff notes.
Cosmos was high for Rachel too. We compared values. It was low for me, which I was surprised by. I was also surprised by belovedness, which was my top value.
I was surprised for you.
I know.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's. So I'm like in a romantic relationship. I'm married. And I have, if I look back, I have always prioritized these romantic relationships, but I'm also achievements up there.
Yeah, so
Affluence
it
is
doesn't,
up
they
there
don't
in my
negate
top
each
one.
other. They just mean they
Yeah.
look, let's just talk about what belovedness is. Belovedness is the value of romantic love. It's of your partner. It's, in a way, it's the marriage values. Like, how much do you organize your life around your marriage? And, when my husband was living, belovedness was probably my second value. I don't know, because the test didn't exist. My belovedness is currently my 16th value. I mean, I had my life, I had my person, I had my marriage. I have no interest in romantic love except for with my dogs. And so, why were you surprised that belovedness showed up as your top value? I mean, if you're married, and I mean, what it means is that when you make decisions, that the first screen is, how will this affect my marriage? Does that not strike you as true?
It strikes me as true. It was more of an aha. I think it was more of an aha, and even having listened, Suzy, to your podcast episode when you were talking about visiting the Taj Mahal,
Yeah.
my husband and I work together, and like my life is very much intertwined with my husband. I guess I'm interested when someone like me, or even like you at that Taj Mahal moment when belovedness was way up, how should you think about designing your career if belovedness is up there? It doesn't affect it at all.
You've got to have a partner who agrees. So, I mean, I would say that in that Taj Mahal episode of my own podcast, this is a moment where I realized Jack's belovedness was higher than mine. And look, we worked together, and I met his belovedness where it was because our years, for many reasons, but one of them was our years were numbered, and I prioritized the marriage more than I naturally would have. But look, I just loved him so much, and I wanted to make him happy. But I think that if you also have high belovedness, and you have also high achievement and high work centrism, the danger comes when you have a partner who has high belovedness but does not understand or buy into your other values. But look, the tool is called the values bridge for a reason, because it allows you to have conversations that do not become accusatory or judgmental. I mean, it allows you to talk about the values and where you both fall on the continuum, so that you can then build the marriage contract that allows each of you to express your values as much as you want to. As we're developing this, curriculum around becoming us, where couples can do becoming you together. And the output of it is going to be a marriage contract around the values. Because everybody, in most marriages, couples have different values. And the answer is, how are you going to negotiate that? Where are you going to land with it? Most people get in a fight about it, or they don't talk about it, or a bunch of different things. My daughter was engaged to an absolutely marvelous person. They seem to have an absolutely gorgeous love story. And, your kids, they never really pay attention to your work. So this summer, we were all living together, and they were about to get married in September. And one night I was just tired of talking to them day in and day out. And I said, hey, for dinner, instead of us talking, because look, I love them, but we were talking constantly. Okay. I said, for dinner, let's just listen to this podcast I was recently on. And so in the middle of the table, I hit my phone, and it's a whole podcast that I was on about the values bridge. And then that night, everybody was doing their thing, and I was sitting at my desk working. And my daughter calls me from the next room, and she says, Mom, guess what? Callie and I just did the values bridge. Come in and read our results with us. And I was like, well, you can just read them on your own. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the moment of truth. I mean, I have done so much couples work. I know what a successful marriage, I can predict a successful marriage 9 times out of 10 by looking at their values results. Okay. I've done it so many times. And I thought, oh God, this is it. Like, I'm about to do this with the two of them. And I started to walk towards them. They were kneeling on the ground because they had done it on like a low coffee table. And I was walking towards them, and my heart was like pounding out of my chest. And then my daughter looked at me and she goes, is it weird when a couple, when both people have the exact same top 6 values? And literally, like, I burst into tears. Like, we both have the exact same top 6 values. And she said, yeah, is that weird? And I said, yeah, weird in the most best way a mother could weep. And then they went down, like, oh, look. And, I knew them so well, and they're happily married, by the way. I knew them so well that I actually could have told you, just knowing them, what their values were. But I did, to see 6 in sync. Now, down below 6, they had a little bit of difference, but even down at the bottom, they were pretty close. What they had that was different, and this was super important information, was the test rank orders your values, but it also tells you how much you're living each one. And what was interesting to me is that she was living her values much more than he was. And so later he was at work and I pulled her aside and I said, look, honey, on some of these top values, you're really living your values and he is not. And as his wife, I'm going to suggest you help him live his values more. And she said to me, great advice, Mom. And we sort of brainstormed about how she might do that. So, I think when you've done your values bridge, I love the way you're sort of thinking about it in terms of your husband, because we live in ecosystems. We are not, nobody lives alone. We live in, and what's often very revelatory for people is like you two as business partners, basically your podcast should look at your values bridge results together. And it's very important sometimes to look at it with a boss or with a team and so forth. So no man is an island and no woman is an island. So
guess whose husband is taking the values bridge tonight?
And then, you can check a little box, right? The tool will do the work for you. There's a place where if you've taken it and you check the box, both people check the box, the values bridge will put your values right next to each other and it will identify and measure your conflicts and your harmonies.
Jean and I are doing that with each other.
Yes. All right. That's for our next podcast together.
Yeah.
Okay, Suzy, I love all the value stuff so much. I'm going to take a bit of a swing for a second because you said something once that I got such a kick out of. And being that this is a connection-centric podcast, you said that you hate networking.
Yes.
And people should just make friends instead.
Yes.
So let's expand on that. And also, did you learn something the hard way that informed this lens?
No, I don't think it was learned the hard way. It was just so obvious to me. It's that networking is phony and mercenary and no one likes to be networked with. I think maybe what happened to me is that as my stature grew in life, as I got older, people were constantly trying to network with me. And it was so obvious. It was so, it was so instrumental, right? They were just trying to network with me so that I could connect them to someone else. And I hated it. I hated the feeling that someone was trying to get to know me because of some kind of use I could be to them. But in general, I'm kind of an authentic person, and I just find anything but real relationships to be tedious. And in a way, it's just a personality thing. And I think that life is just better when you assume the best intentions of everyone and make friends. Now you will, if you do that and you have that attitude, which I have always had, you will get screwed because along the way you will assume best intentions and a person won't have them.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can expect oh, damn, I trusted that person and I liked that person, but that person was not as good as I thought. I'll take that risk. I'll take it. I'll take that risk because I'm a big girl and I pick myself up and dust myself off again. But the upside is so huge because I've made friends with so many people in unlikely places and for unlikely reasons because I'm just always giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. And you know who it scares? My children. My children are living daylights is scared out of them because I'm friendly to everybody and I answer everybody on Instagram and I start conversations with people and they're like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know. Part of it's personality and part of it is just so many good things have come out of it. A few years ago, I was at a conference in Denmark and I was being paid to speak and it was a huge crowd. And I went and I remember as I got off the plane thinking to myself, oh, I can't wait to see all the new friends I'm about to make. Now that I've been informed this is a weird, I actually thought that. Then that night I noticed that some of the speakers were all going out to dinner, but I had not been included. And I thought, I'm just going to assume it's an oversight. I literally walked up
go.
and said, can I come? And they were like, oh, of course. All right. So we went out. We walked home at daylight. Okay. I did in fact make 8 new friends that night. People I had never known before. I remember thinking these are the nicest people in the world. Why had I never known them before? So that was 4 years ago. And we kind of stayed in touch. We all followed each other on LinkedIn and we kind of stayed in touch. So 3 weeks ago, one of those people wrote me on LinkedIn saying, hey, I have a new book coming out. I'm going to be in New York. Any publicity you could help me with would be great. And so I got her. She sent me her book and I read it. It was so great. Her name is Leslie John. She's a professor at Harvard Business School. I read her book. It was so great. And in fact, it's really about the value of voice. And I said to her, come over to my house right away. Let's make a podcast together. And she came on the podcast. We made it. She is great. It was one of my favorite podcasts, all about it's, you know what her expertise is? Oversharing.
Oh,
I thought I was the world's expert on oversharing because that's all I do all day. But she truly is like technically the world's expert on how much oversharing is too much and so forth. And she actually is a big believer in oversharing. And she and I were reminiscing that night in Denmark, we all had that night that we had because everybody entered into the conversation, assuming best intentions, saying, are these going to be new friends? Let's overshare and find out. Okay. And then 4 years later, we end up making great content together and giving each other a hug. And I don't know when I'll see her again, but I bet, okay, that night, I bet those people are not including me in the dinner party by accident. I bet I'm going to tell them everything and let them tell me everything. And we're going to stay late. And when they say one more bottle of wine, we're all going to say yes. And it kind of works out. But you have to have a certain attitude going into it that people are generally good. And I know that's hard. I know that's hard to come by. I know I get it, but I don't like the alternative.
I feel like Rachel and I are those kinds of people too. Like Rachel has talked about being the sort of person who makes vacation friends. I enjoy making a friend at a bar, having a dinner at a bar next to.
Right.
I would also imagine, Suzy, that you're the sort of person that attracts friendliness. So the same way you're asking for friends, are people also asking you to be friends that same way?
Yes. You know, just like I do, because you have a podcast that you develop all these parasocial relationships and people listen to my podcast and they think they know me really well. And then they write me because they have felt a certain intimacy with me and I feel so tender towards them. And I try to answer them all. It's hard. The volume's high. But I try because they put themselves out there. So yeah, I guess it's true. I guess friendliness does attract friendliness. You know who gets freaked out by me? Snobby people. Snooty, snobby people. They just are so uncomfortable around me. I make them so agitated. People who are cool and withholding have a great deal of trouble with me. I mean, they're often openly rude to me. Like when I'm like in a room and there's like cool girls and I'm like myself and I'm like, oh, I love your shoes, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, they just do not. And I'm so over it. I don't care. I mean, whatever. I was never going to be one of those cool girls, so they can have the lives that I don't know. I think it's just such a small life when you want to be cool. It's like,
Suzy, you epitomize cool to me. Like I have you on such a pedestal. I can't even imagine someone not warmly responding to you. Like
it happens.
You are, as I said, you're such a dynamo.
Oh, you're sweet. Okay. I thank you very, very much. You can hang out with me all the time. But I would say that like you know who it's a little bit why I had to stop being a reporter. So early in my career, I started off as a crime reporter in Miami. And my problem was I thought reporters were just not nice enough and we should always give everybody a second chance. And I thought that reporters were really hypocritical because a lot of reporters smoked and drank and used drugs and cheated on their spouses. And then they would like literally take down politicians who smoked, drank and had affairs. And I thought like, what? And I would often say to them, you're such a hypocrite. Like, why are you doing that? And then I would say things like, I think we should be nicer or hold this door. And I remember an editor one time saying to me, you're just too nice to be a reporter. And he was right. And I think that those, and look, the world needs reporters and the world needs people who don't trust anyone. And the world needs people who ask very hard questions. I have no problem with the Fourth Estate in general, theoretically. I just couldn't be part of it because I was, I just wanted to, part of it, look, this is linked to my faith, right? I mean, I am not I'm a person who's filled with hope. And I mean, I've had students, one of the most profound moments for me as a professor was I was teaching Becoming You to undergraduates. And a student in the back row raised his hand and he said, do you ever get sick of teaching this stuff knowing that we're all going to die?
Nihilism.
Oh my God. I was just like, every eye in the room locked on me. I just remember this is a moment for these students that they will that they will either, that they could remember if I handle this right, okay? Or they could just write it off as just another phony adult. So I actually just stopped. I mean, I was like, wow, I had an out-of-body experience. So I pulled up a chair to the center of the well And I said, I don't know how to answer you, so I'm just going to answer you directly from my heart. I hope I'm not canceled for what I'm about to say. Okay. I mean, because I didn't know what else to do. This kid just asked me if I was ever sick of teaching because we were all going to die someday. And I thought this was a true moment. And so I pulled up this chair, as I said, and I said, I want you to know how much I love you. I love every student in this room. And there is an option that we love each other. And I've selected that option. And I do believe in hope. And I believe that, and I said to him, I'm a faithful person. This is coming from that place. But, and you don't have to have my faith or any faith to feel these ways. There are people who feel this way, but I am never, ever dwelling in a place where it's all not worth anything. And it was like, I leaned into it. I gave him the full answer. I thought I could be fired for my answer because I was very personal. I actually kind of said, very tragically, my daughter had a very close friend who died by suicide, and we had seen what had happened when a person lost her belief that there was hope. And I said, if any of you are thinking that there's no hope, if any of you, I like walked to the board and I wrote my cell phone number down, and I said, anytime, day or night or day, this is the number, keep it in your pocket. And I just did that. And I thought, I am overstepping. I am oversharing. It was a moment for me as a professor I'll never forget. And then I finished and I said, any other questions? And then I had to let the class go. Like we had another 20 minutes, but I had spoken my piece. And so, I think that this is all like wrapped up in connection. Like I think another option for me would have been to say to that student, I think that this is an important question. Let's take it offline in office hours. And I didn't do that.
What a beautiful way to take that and make it into a moment of connection.
Well,
and which also, like, I think connection is faith, is cosmos, is, I think it's all so beautiful. And Suzy, thank you so much for sharing that with us. If you're simply listening to this, not watching the video, Rachel and I both teared up. Had to take a second. Well, let's take a hard left turn.
Okay, yes, let's talk about recipes.
I could talk about this forever. Rachel, I know you want to ask another question, but we got to get you to the airport and Suzy out of here. So let's have an extra conversation.
Let's do it.
Okay.
You want to kick it off, Rachel? Phew.
Okay. So Suzy, God, I adore you. Every episode we ask 3 questions centered on connection. And the first one is, who was the last connection you made or a memorable recent connection?
I had on my podcast incredible couples therapist named Vienna Farron. You may be familiar with her. She's a massive following because she's so incredibly smart. And I had her on around Thanksgiving to talk about why the holidays are so hard. And we really connected with each other just in a very profound and authentic way. And it has led to us talking about Becoming Us together, her bringing her expertise in couples and me bringing my Becoming You expertise. And so it was meant to be just like a podcast episode where we sort of chit-chatted about things, but we connected on a much deeper level, and it may really lead to some amazing things. If it does, great. And if it doesn't, I still want to be her friend.
Perfect. I think, Suzy, you are the quintessential like forever student. And we've heard even through this conversation that you've learned so much about yourself, your life, your values. So we're really curious, what is a lesson you would share with your younger self about connecting?
I think this assuming best intentions. I think I came to it pretty early in a look, I come from a Sicilian family on my mother's side. Nobody assumed best intentions. And so I think I overreacted in assuming best intentions. Literally it's the Sicilians versus the world. Okay. And I didn't like it because it was, I didn't like how clannish it made my family, that, you were either in or out. That was not my vibe, personality wise. And so I think if I could even go back earlier than when that kind of dawned on me, I would say even earlier, like everybody is a potential friend. Everybody, there is no in, there is no out. And look, I love being Sicilian. And when I'm in Sicily, I think I feel so at home. Everyone looks like me. Everyone talks like I do. And so I feel very at home there. But I there's also this part of me that's like, but there's more than Sicilians in the world, so that I would tell myself, open your arms wide.
Oh, Suzy, when I was starting junior high, my mom gave me a button, a purple and yellow button that said, "To all the friends I've yet to meet, hello." And
Oh,
thankfully, I knew enough not to put it on my backpack because I would not have made any friends. But
I
I
know.
feel like that's your ethos, and it's a beautiful way of looking at the
It's
world.
pretty cringe. That is the cringiest button. I think you can wear it now and
Now.
like just be like, like let the cringe fly. I mean, it's actually
Yeah.
it's so bad it's good.
Yeah, I mean it's very earnest. My mom also would wear a pin that said "Teachers never lose their class," so that's kind of the button spectrum we're working with here.
Okay, right.
But I love the way you look at best intention and potential friends. Okay, our last question is: even though you have such a vast network and you know so many people,
Yeah.
do you have a dream connection that you haven't made yet?
I do. I think you're going to laugh, or you may cry. But this is the truth. This is the honest to God truth. I really, really, really would like to connect with Britney Spears. I would like to connect with Britney Spears. You know why? I think she's in trouble. I mean, I think I've loved her for a long time. I think she's an incredible look. I was a runner for many, many years until my feet basically said, please stop that. But I was a true runner. And, I was running 8 miles a day kind of thing. And you listen to a lot of Britney when you're running. And I just thought, I watched her terrible demise and I watched her conservatorship and I watched what was happening to her. And I had, a huge amount of pity for what happened to her. And then I was so happy when she was quote unquote freed. And I continue to follow her and I see her. Brittany, if you're listening, I love you and I'm so worried for you. So I fear for her and I would love to get my arms around her and I would love to say, hey, let's do Becoming You together. I think that I think they would be great loss. I think that we've lost Amy Winehouse and so many other great young artists who just could not get their wits back about them. And so honestly, I know this sounds completely crazy. I'd love to connect with her.
I don't think it's crazy. I think it's incredibly generous.
Professor Stage's intervention on Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I think that she's a true victim, and I think that it would be, I think that I would love to connect with her, and not honestly, under the darkness of night, not for anybody's eyes, but for hers. So that's I don't. Am I the only guest who's ever answered Britney Spears?
Yes. And your why was incredible.
Amazing.
We've
had some Obamas. Yeah. I mean, we've had some Oprahs, but you, Suzy, you are a unique one. Yeah. And this will be the most memorable. I promise you.
Well, okay. Well, Brittany, I hope she's listening right now. Maybe she is.
I'm sure she is.
So I'm waiting for you to DM me. Okay.
Yes. So, but Suzy, before we sadly let you go, which we never ever want to, can you tell the listener where to find you, where to find Becoming You, so they can, wrap their arms around you?
All right. Well, thank you so much. You can find me on Instagram at Suzy Welch. I've got a website, SuzyWelch.com. I have a free newsletter. We have free webinars. And I think that that's a good place to start. Instagram and LinkedIn and my website.
Suzy, thank you so much. Will you come back?
Wait, tell us.
Podcast, okay?
Oh, your podcast, yes.
It not be the only podcast you listen to. Please listen to the Becoming You podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts.
It is so good podcast.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you.
Your travel series, that was my favorite.
Thank you. I have a really good series coming up right now on fear. On fear, why we're scared, why we're scared of ourselves. So I think the series are some of my favorite things to do. And the travel, we went around the world with Suzy on that one. So thanks.
You're a very, very good storyteller. So thank you so much for spending some of your time and some of your stories with us.
Well, my great pleasure. Let's do it again.
I would love to. Thank you so much, Suzy.
All right,
bye. Sign me up for Suzy's seminar, Rachel. When can I go?
Sign me up to be Suzy's friend. I would really like to stay in her circle.
Honestly, she was so, I know you and I have gushed over this since chatting with Suzy, but she's so intelligent, so quick-witted, so articulate. She tells you exactly what she thinks, and I respect her so much for it. Thanks for bringing her, Rachel.
Oh, absolutely. I was so thrilled that she said yes. And I'm still kind of a little bit in disbelief that she did, but I think she offers so much and could have numerous conversations with her and keep mining all of these stories. There's a lot of life that she's packed in. And I think that she does a really admirable job of, as I was saying to you earlier, she will share difficult, unflattering stories that provide a learning lesson. And she isn't afraid to make herself a sacrificial lamb or an example in service of making a point or showing how growth is possible or how you can be wrong and come to a different place or how a hard thing can actually serve you in the end. So I think the fact that she takes the ego out of it in order
Mhm.
to, again, be this fabulous teacher is so admirable.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is when we chatted with John Levy, also a best-selling author, he mentioned that we often think trust earns vulnerability, but it's the other way around. Vulnerability earns trust. So I
Good
can
point.
see that pattern. Yeah, I can see that pattern in her too. It's uncomfortable, but she leans into it. Uncomfortable for her, not for me. I love every second of it.
Our threshold for discomfort might be very different. Yes.
That's true. Yes.
Not from each other, from other people.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
asked me if I get easily embarrassed, and I was like, no. Should I? You know what I mean? Like, if I got easily embarrassed, life would be very hard because I make a number of mistakes that could just
Yeah.
paralyze me otherwise.
I do get embarrassed, but it's more like I get embarrassed reliving like things that I did or said that were maybe a faux pas that I didn't have the chance to apologize for. So like, you know,
That's fair. I think if I hurt someone's feelings or I
Yeah.
misstepped in a way that affected them, that I could perseverate and think about more. But if
Yeah.
I just embarrassed myself in some manner, like I tripped or I don't know, those things thankfully do not worry me too much.
Before we jump into our show and tell, Rachel, you just said a word that I had to Google and I am obsessed with it. Perseverate. Persistent, involuntary repetition of a particular response, such as a word, gesture, or thought.
I have to tell you why this is so funny.
Tell me.
The word perseverate gets used so much in my family, my like growing up family, because
Really?
I feel like it's this very neurotic Jewish trait,
Yeah.
which is to ruminate or obsess over something or revisit something unproductively. And so it's like so baked into the way we talk, where to perseverate is just to do the thing that we do, which can be like, oh, still talking about this thing or still thinking about that thing. Like it is a word that maybe doesn't like exist in the world all the time, but is like something we revisit as a touchstone all the time in my family. There's a lot of perseverating.
Word of the day on the connection code, perseverate. Well, Rachel, should we do show and tell?
Yes. I'm going to laugh about this more later.
What'd you bring?
Okay, so I think we're just having a lot of author crushes right now because
Correct.
Adam Grant, who I think is phenomenal, has a new book coming out. And my friend Andrew Kaplan sent me a note about it. It's called Vibe, The Secrets of Strong Connections in a Lonely World. Which, if that doesn't feel like a sign from the universe that we are meant to connect with Adam Grant, I don't know what is. I can't wait to read it. I think he is an incredible thinker and writer and student of humanity. We also both went to Michigan. So when he gets this cold note from me, I hope that helps.
I think it will.
So I think it will be, as all his books are, a really fascinating perspective. And I think it's very topical, obviously. How about you?
Well, Rachel, I'm going to share my show and tell, but also, did you know that my title at Petite Acres is Chief Vibes Officer?
I didn't, but you seem like such a CVO.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I hope you get a
Another
t-shirt made, maybe some swag.
Here for the vibes. Well, my show and tell was actually an article in the New York Times about how to make friends as an adult. It is a wonderful guide. But one of the tips really resonated, especially after this interview with Suzy. One of the tips was to invite yourself. Suzy told a really lovely story about inviting herself to a dinner that ended up making her a lot of really wonderful friends and lifelong connections. And sometimes we think inviting ourselves is rude because people told us that as a child. But as an adult, if you're not invited and it feels like something you'd want to go to, the worst you can hear is no. And very infrequently will that happen. So if something cool is going on, invite yourself.
I want to double click on that for a second.
Go ahead.
I think there is value to inviting yourself.
Yes.
But how much in this article does it talk about reading the room and making sure that you self-inviting is not going to put the other person in an awkward position of having to include you if they don't want to? Because remember also the Priya Parker situation about how sometimes exclusivity is a gift and you have to protect the dynamic of a given group.
Well, okay. So it is always a game of reading the room. It is always a game of understanding your own relationship. So that's a really good thing to add on to here and append to this, because if it's a brand new friend and they told you about their wedding that's happening in 2 weeks, don't invite yourself. If it is a group of friends and they're talking about maybe going to yoga this weekend and they haven't solidified it, invite yourself to yoga. Like understand where you can wiggle in and where maybe formality may get in the way. That is an excellent point. But also, if you're afraid of inviting yourself, be the inviter, make the plan, because every group needs a leader.
That's such a good point. I felt like in Suzy's instance, I completely supported her inviting herself because if all the speakers were going to dinner, it would seem as though she should have been included.
Of
so
course.
It wasn't out of bounds to say, I want to jump in too. But if I got wind of a dinner that I wasn't invited to, I don't think I would just raise my hand and be like, I would like to add on to that reservation. But you're right.
Yes.
If a plan is like in the forming stage and there's like maybe this, that, like things are still in motion, there's more room to say, oh, if you guys don't mind, I'd love to join you. Or next time you do this, maybe I could come too.
Yeah.
Maybe a softer next time.
Exactly. Or if there's like a group of people leaving an event you're at and they're mentioning dinner, that's a lovely place to say like, oh, I'm also hungry.
Loved connecting with you. Hope you don't perseverate later. And this was a wonderful conversation.
I'll try not to perseverate, but this has been an episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, work, and everything in between. This is a production by two friends, Rachel Gilman-Rischel and Gina Anderson-Cohen. We love, obsess over, perseverate over, but in a good way, hearing from you. So send us a DM or a message on LinkedIn. Thanks to Suzy Welch for being our guest today. Thanks to Ben Cleaver for editing this podcast. And thanks to all of you for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.